Hello and welcome to LevelUP. This is our Python series where Angus is going to teach you the basics of coding in Python. Enjoy!
Alright, welcome back. So what we're going to do now is create this higher or lower game like we talked about before. And I'm going to break this down into a few separate parts. And it's going to use while loops like we've used before. And we'll use some variables, and we'll use some if statements as well towards the end. So we're really combining everything that we've learned so far into this project. I'm going to give you some code here. It's okay if you don't fully understand this, we'll go into more depth later, but we're going to type import like this at the top of our program, import, and we'll type random. And what we need to do if we're going to create a random number game, we need to get a random number. And what this statement here does, this piece of code, is it quote unquote imports some code for us, and this is called a module, random, some code that other programmers have written, and it allows us to get a random number. So what we're going to do here is, you're familiar with this, we'll just say r random, feel free to call this whatever you want, I'm just going to call it that, and we'll say equals random dot rand int, and then we'll give it our range, and we want to generate, let's just start with a range from 0 to 10. And what this is going to do is just generate a random integer. Remember, an integer is just our whole numbers. This is going to generate a random integer between 0 and 10. It doesn't include the top number, because if you remember with our for loops it goes up to not including, so it'll be a random number from 0 to 9, inclusive. So if you want to do up to 10, just change that to 11. So if we go back, this is just creating a variable, and this is just getting a random number for us. You don't really fully need to understand this, but that's just as long as you understand this is getting us a random number here. Okay, and we can print that. We'll print random, and if we hit run, yep, see 9, we'll run that again, 5, we're getting random numbers, that's good. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we'll ask the user for a user guess. These probably aren't the best variable names, but feel free to call these whatever you want, and we'll ask them for their input, guess a number between 1 and 10. And we'll ask them for their input. And then remember, because we're using integers, we'll need to convert this input to an integer by just wrapping in int like this. And remember to go to the end and close it off with a bracket so that this whole input is surrounded by brackets here and here. And then what we can do quickly here is we'll just say if user guess, so we're using our if statements here, equals, so two equal signs, equals rand num, see repl.it's given us our autocompletes here. So if our user guesses the same number as is randomly generated, we can print you guessed the right number, something meaningful like that. Else, so we'll do a quick else statement here. So if this isn't true, if user guess isn't true, we'll just print sorry, that was the wrong number, and we can do a sad face here. And if we run this, let's see, why is this always going to be? I'm going to guess 5, and we say sorry that was the wrong number. I'm going to guess again 6. I'm not going to guess it here, am I? This probably is wasted time just doing this. Yeah, we probably won't get that here. But there we go, we've got a basic game up and running here. We generate a random number, assign it to this variable. We then ask the user for an input, what number they want, and then we check. So if the user guess is the same as the number, we print you guessed the right number. Otherwise we print sorry, that's the wrong number. And we're all familiar with this. So what we can do to add the higher or lower capabilities, we can use a while loop, a conditional loop. Because if you remember, a conditional loop runs until a condition is met. So we could generate a random number at the start of the game, and then keep asking the user for their guess until it's met. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change up the code here a bit. And what we can do is say, we'll create a while loop. So we'll say while user guess, so we're using the number that you user guess, and we're going to use doesn't equal. So remember to use doesn't equal. This exclamation mark basically says not, and then the equal sign equals, so this is not equal to, and we'll say rand number, and remember a colon at the end. So while we're going to repeat this loop, whatever is tabbed in this loop here, while the user guess isn't the random number, and we'll hit enter. And make sure we're tabbed in here because Python runs all the code that's tabbed within the while loop. And then we will print a message, because if this code runs here right now, they'll have guessed wrong. We'll say, so sorry, that was the wrong number, sad face. And then we'll ask again. Just remove number, try again. And then we'll have to get our inputs again. So I'm just going to copy this. We'll paste it down here again. So remember, we're reassigning user guess, so we're changing the value in here by asking the user for another number. Guess a number between 1 and 10. And we can actually delete this now because we don't really need it. The while loop sort of does magic for us. And once we escape this loop, so once user guess does equal rand number, this condition here will be false. So we can print you guessed the right number, like so. So let's test this out here. Okay, so just before we run this, just notice one wee quick mistake that I've made. Up here where we generate our random numbers, if we just change the 0 to a 1, because throughout it we've said guess number between 1 and 1, and if that was 0, it has a chance of generating a random number of 0, and that would leave the user pretty confused. So we'll change that to a 1 just to be on the safe side. So this is going from 1 up to but not including 11. So 1 to 11, 1 to 10, like that. Cool. So I'm just going to run this. If you want to run it as well. So we'll guess the number. Let's see if we can guess it. I'll guess 1. Wrong number. 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm not good at guessing this. 7, 8. There we go. Okay, so we guessed it. 8. 8 was the right number. So let's talk through it. So first of all, just like we had the last time we ran this, we have our random number generated. You know, where you've generated a number from 1 to 11, or 1 to 10, sorry. And we assign it to a random number. Then we ask the user the first time, you know, guess a number between 1 and 10. And that's assigned to the user guess number. Then we start a while loop. We say while user guess doesn't equal a random number. So let's say, so the first time I guessed 1, and random number was initially 8, like we found out at the end, and I guessed 1, so 1 doesn't equal 8, so we run the loop. We say print, sorry, that's the wrong number, like we see here. Sorry, that's the wrong number, try again. And then we ask the user again. We just use the same statement we used up here. Ask them for a number, assign it to user guess, and then we go back up the while loop, and we check again. This time I typed in 2. 2 doesn't equal 8. Print error message, ask them again for the input. I put in 3. 3 doesn't equal 8. Error message, ask again, and so on until we get 8. 8 doesn't equal 8. Well, that's false. 8 does equal 8. So we break out the loop and we print, you guessed the right number, which is what we see here. So that's awesome. That's a really cool project that we've created here. We've used our print statements that we learned in our first tutorial. We've used our input statements that we used in our second tutorial. We've created variables, and we've then used our while loops, which we just learned in this tutorial today. So well done. That's awesome. There's one last thing we can add to this, is the higher or lower aspects, because right now we're just left on a wild goose chase trying to find if the number is right or not. See, I just started on 1 and went all the way up to 8. But what we can do is add in a higher or lower aspect. And this is going to use if statements, which we learned a few tutorials ago. And I want to challenge you to try and do this yourself. Don't worry, we'll go over this. We'll talk through it at the end. But it'd be great to see if you can try and do this on your own. So what we want to try and get is, instead of just printing "sorry, that was the wrong number," instead we'll either say a message saying, you know, "sorry, guess higher," or "sorry, guess lower," or something like that. That's what we'll want to see out to the console. So using if statements, you'll probably need 2 if statements and a print statement within each of those if statements. See if you can print that out for us. So pause the video and give that a shot. See if you can try that. Okay, I hope that went well for you. Don't worry if it didn't. We're still learning here, so I'm gonna talk you through it. So we'll use our if statements, remember, and what we'll type here. So if user guess, so we're going to use the user guess variable, and if this is less than rand number, so if the number's less, then what we'll do is we'll just type print "sorry, wrong number, guess higher," because our guess was lower than the random number, so we need to guess higher. What we could do, we could technically use an elif statement here, but if user guess isn't less than random number, then it's going to be greater than it, just because with the nature of the while loop, it won't run if it equals. So we can just type else and print, print "sorry, wrong number, guess lower," something like that. And this is basically, if we were to do this as an elif statement instead, we could just use if user guess was greater than rand number. So if the user guessed too high a number, but I'll just leave it as an else. That's a bit cleaner in my opinion. So we can run this again. Guess number between 1 and 10. So I'll guess 5, middle of the road. Sorry, whoops, I misspelled that there. Uppercase. Sorry, wrong number. So we need to guess lower than 5. I'll guess 3. Sorry, wrong number, guess higher. So the number has to be 4. And you see, guessed the right number. And we did that in 3 turns versus the 8 turns that we did last time. So really well done if you managed to get that. That's awesome. But no, don't worry at all if you didn't get that. We're still learning. So I'd really encourage you now to try and put together all that you've learned. We've learned a lot up until this point. We've got inputs, we've printed statements, we've created variables, learned about a few data types, we've done if statements and loops. So why don't you combine some of that and create some of your own project? Just mess about with this, see if you can understand, put into practice what we've learned here. And then we'll see you back here for the next tutorial.
Hello and welcome to LevelUP. This is our Python series for this video. Angus is going to teach channels for some more tutorials from Angus on Python. Join us next time. Bye.